Hello friends, welcome to Tales Haven. I hope you find my story videos interesting and engaging. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. Elena was the kind of woman who made everything feel calm just by walking into the room. She had soft brown eyes that always looked kind, a gentle voice that never rose in anger, and a heart full of dreams. Ryan loved that about her. Or at least, that's what he used to say. They had met in college. He was studying architecture and she was training to become a teacher. Their story started like one in a book: slow walks under rainy skies, coffee dates after long classes, laughter over burnt toast on Sunday mornings. Ryan gave her a silver bracelet on their first anniversary, with a charm shaped like a tiny house. He said, "This is where we'll live someday." And Elena believed him. Everyone in their town knew them. Elena and Ryan. They'd say, "You just know they'll end up together." Elena's younger sister, Mia, had always been different. Where Elena was quiet, Mia was loud. Where Elena stayed home to read, Mia was at the parties. She wore bright red lipstick at 16, took selfies every hour, and rolled her eyes whenever anyone called her Elena's sister. Deep inside, Mia hated being in Elena's shadow. People always compared them. Elena was the sweet one, the smart one, the one with the future. Mia felt like she was always second, no matter how hard she tried to shine. But Elena never noticed her sister's silent anger. She loved Mia. She always said, "Mia's just wild. She'll settle down one day." She didn't know Mia had been watching Ryan for a long time. It started small, harmless teasing when he came over, little jokes, soft smiles. Ryan laughed at first. He thought Mia was just being playful. But the way she looked at him slowly changed. And he didn't look away. Then came that winter. Elena fell ill with a bad fever. She could barely get out of bed. Ryan, always thoughtful, came over often to take care of her. He made her tea, brought her favorite soup, and sat by her bed reading to her. But over time, he started staying longer in the living room with Mia. She'd sit on the couch in short pajamas, flipping through magazines, tossing her hair, asking him questions about buildings, pretending she cared. Elena heard them laughing once, laughing hard, while she lay shivering upstairs. It stung. She didn't want to believe anything was wrong. "Ryan loves me," she whispered to herself. He wouldn't, but deep in her heart, a cold feeling began to grow. One evening, she came downstairs early. Her fever had gone down. She heard their voices before they saw her, close, soft, too close. She stood at the bottom of the stairs just watching. Ryan turned. His face changed. Guilt. Panic. "Elena," he said. "You're up." That night, Elena didn't sleep. A week later, Ryan came to her house again. He wasn't holding soup this time. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking. "I need to talk to you," he said. She sat down on the porch. The wind was cold. The trees didn't move. He didn't look at her when he spoke. "I don't know how it happened, but I've fallen in love with Mia." Elena blinked. "Once. Twice." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "We didn't plan it," he said quickly. "It just happened. I didn't mean to hurt you." She stared at the man who once promised to build her a house with white curtains and rose vines. "You're marrying her," she said softly. He nodded. Her world shattered, quietly, like glass breaking under a pillow. She didn't cry, not then. She just stood up, walked into the house, and closed the door behind her. That night, she packed a bag. She left the town the next morning, while it was still dark. No goodbyes. No notes. Only silence. Elena didn't look back as the train pulled away from the town. She sat by the window, her bag beside her, holding the silver bracelet Ryan once gave her. The charm of the tiny house pressed into her palm. Her eyes were dry, but her heart felt like it was breaking in slow motion. She told herself not to cry. Not here. Not now. A woman sitting across from her asked gently, "Are you okay?" Elena smiled and nodded, but her voice didn't come. Her throat was too tight to speak. She traveled for hours, arriving in a new city just before evening. She had no friends there, no job waiting, no plan. But that was okay. All she wanted was a place where no one knew her name, where no one whispered behind her back, "Did you hear what happened to Elena?" She rented a small room above a bookstore. The owner, a kind old woman named Ruth, gave her a key and said, "This place is quiet. You'll heal here." Elena worked at the bookstore part-time, stacking shelves, helping customers, and reading during lunch breaks. The quiet helped. The books were safe. They didn't leave, or lie, or marry your sister. Back in her hometown, the wedding went ahead 2 weeks after she left. Elena didn't go. She didn't need to see Mia in a white dress or Ryan standing beside her, smiling like he'd never made a promise to someone else. But the sounds still found her. A friend from the town sent her a message. They looked happy, but it felt strange without you there. Another wrote, "Mia kept looking over her shoulder, like she expected you to show up." She didn't reply to either message. The wedding photos spread on social media. Elena never searched for them, but sometimes they appeared by accident. A picture on someone's timeline, a post in a group she forgot to leave. In one photo, Mia's smile looked wide and perfect, but her eyes looked sharp, like she was trying too hard to prove something. Ryan was beside her, wearing the same suit he once tried on for Elena. Elena stared at that picture for a long time, then deleted her account. Days turned into months. She kept busy, working, reading, walking the same quiet streets near the bookstore. At night, she wrote in a small blue journal, pouring out the words she could never say aloud. Not about Mia. Not about Ryan. Just feelings. Emptiness. Anger. Pain. She didn't hate them, but she didn't forgive them either. Sometimes, when it rained, she still remembered how Ryan used to bring her coffee and sit with her, how they once laughed about naming their kids after book characters. That kind of love didn't fade overnight. But over time, it faded enough for her to breathe again. Ruth, the bookstore owner, often said, "You've got a quiet strength, Elena. One day, the world will notice." Elena would smile, not knowing that those words would come true in a way no one expected. For years passed. Elena was no longer the same girl who left her town in the dark. She had grown slowly, quietly, beautifully. She had started her own online book club, sharing her favorite stories and thoughts about life. People loved her calm voice and kind heart. Her followers grew. Publishers noticed. She was invited to events. Bookstores called her to speak. And at one of those events, in a tall hotel with glass walls and golden lights, she met someone. His name was Julian. He was soft-spoken, polite, and very private. She didn't know at first that he was one of the youngest billionaires in the country. He never acted like it. He listened more than he talked, and when Elena told him her story in pieces, he didn't look at her with pity. He just held her hand and said, "You deserve everything they couldn't give you." They started meeting more often. He visited her bookstore. He helped her set up a larger space, with a cozy reading cafe beside it. She told him he didn't need to do that. He said, "I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it with you." And one evening, as the city lights glowed beneath them, Julian asked, "Will you walk through life with me, with no shadows behind us?" Elena didn't cry. She smiled and said, "Yes." Elena didn't expect the letter. It arrived on a calm Tuesday afternoon. She had just returned home from the cafe next to her bookstore, holding a warm cup of tea and a small paper bag of pastries for Julian. The mailbox was stuffed with usual things, flyers, bills, a magazine, but tucked between them was a pale blue envelope. Her name was handwritten on it. No return address. She opened it slowly, standing by the kitchen counter. It was an invitation. Class of 20XX High School Reunion. Join us for a night of laughter, memories, and connection. Location: Lakeside Town Hall. Date: July 16th, 6 p.m. Dress code: formal. Her hands went still. That town. That hall. Those memories. For years had passed, but the name of her hometown still brought a quiet ache to her chest. She hadn't been back since the night she left, since the night Ryan sat on her porch and told her he was marrying her sister. Now, The past was reaching out again. She set the invitation down and stared at it for a long time. A strange silence filled the room. Later that evening, Julian found her sitting by the window, the letter on her lap. He sat beside her and asked gently, "Everything okay?" Elena nodded slowly. "It's a reunion invitation. From my old school." He looked at her for a moment. "Do you want to go?" "I don't know," she answered. "It's where everything broke. I'm not sure if I'm ready." Julian reached for her hand. "You don't need to prove anything. Not to them. Not to anyone. But if part of you wants to go, to see what's changed, or just to show yourself how far you've come, then I'll be right there with you." Elena smiled faintly. "Even if it's awkward? I'll be the calm one," he teased. "You can be the dramatic one." She laughed quietly. For the first time, the thought of going back didn't scare her as much. The day of the reunion came quickly. Elena chose a dress the color of midnight, elegant and simple, with tiny silver details that shimmered when she moved. Her hair was curled gently, framing her soft, thoughtful face. She wore small earrings, no necklace, and kept her silver bracelet tucked safely into her clutch bag. Julian wore a fitted gray suit. He didn't like being noticed, but when he walked beside Elena, heads always turned. They drove together into the town, just before sunset. The roads looked the same, but the air felt different, older, heavier. Elena's heart beat faster the closer they got. The town hall stood tall at the edge of the lake, just like it had before. Golden lights glowed from the windows. Laughter and music drifted into the night air. She stood outside for a moment before entering. Julian looked at her. "Ready?" Elena nodded. Inside, the room buzzed with voices and memories. People were hugging, laughing, showing pictures of their children. A few had changed completely. A few looked exactly the same. As soon as Elena walked in, a wave of silence moved through one side of the room. Someone whispered her name. Another person stared too long. Then someone smiled and came up to her. "Elena? Oh my God, you came." She smiled back politely. "Hi, Lauren." More people approached, old classmates, former teachers. They asked questions, offered compliments, told her she looked incredible. But from the far side of the room, two people hadn't moved. Ryan and Mia stood near the drink table. Ryan wore a dark suit. His hair had grayed slightly at the temples, and his smile was nowhere to be found. Mia wore a tight red dress, just like the one she had worn years ago at a party Elena still remembered. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were not. They both stared at Elena like she was a ghost. Julian noticed them first. He leaned closer to Elena. "They've seen you." "I know," she said softly. "Let them." She didn't walk toward them. She walked through the room like she belonged there. She laughed with old friends, posed for photos, and introduced Julian as her husband. She didn't explain who he was. She didn't need to. But Ryan couldn't look away. He watched her from across the room, the woman he once promised a life to, the one he left for something he thought was better. And now here she was. Strong, glowing, untouched by the years that had worn him down. Mia tugged on Ryan's arm at one point. "Why do you keep staring?" He didn't answer. And when Julian leaned down to kiss Elena's hand and whispered something that made her laugh, the kind of laugh Ryan hadn't heard in years, Mia noticed the way Ryan's face changed. It was regret. Raw and sharp. The kind that comes not from a single mistake, but from years of pretending it wasn't one. The music played softly in the background, but Ryan couldn't hear it. His eyes were locked on Elena. She stood across the room, smiling as she talked with an old classmate. Her laughter was light and real. Her eyes, once filled with pain, now glowed with peace. And the man beside her, her husband, never stopped watching her with quiet love. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. He had told himself for years that he made the right choice. That Elena was too soft, too quiet. That Mia brought more excitement. That he had followed his heart. But now, standing here, watching Elena shine in a way he had never seen before, all of those excuses started to fall apart. Mia noticed the way Ryan kept glancing across the room. "Ryan," she said in a sharp whisper, "can you stop staring at her?" He looked away quickly. I'm not. You are, she snapped. You've barely said 2 words to me since she walked in. Ryan didn't reply. He just looked down into his drink, wishing he hadn't had that 3rd glass of wine. Across the room, Elena was calm. She noticed the looks, the whispers, the silence from Mia and Ryan. But she didn't let any of it touch her. Not anymore. Julian stood by her side the whole evening. He didn't say much, but when she looked at him, she felt steady, like the storm was far behind her now. After a while, Elena stepped outside for a moment. The air was cooler, the sky deep blue with a few stars beginning to show. She stood near the edge of the garden behind the hall, breathing deeply. She didn't hear the footsteps at first. Elena, a voice said behind her. She turned slowly. It was Ryan. He looked unsure. His tie was slightly loosened. He held his hands in front of him, like he didn't know what to do with them. Can I talk to you? He asked. Elena looked at him. Her face didn't show anger, just quiet curiosity. Talk then. Ryan stepped closer, but not too close. I didn't think you'd come tonight, he said. But I'm glad you did. She didn't answer. He shifted his weight. You look happy. I am. There was a pause. He looked down at the grass. I've thought about you. A lot. 4 years is a long time to think, she said gently. He gave a small, sad smile. I thought I was doing the right thing back then. I convinced myself it was love. And now, she asked, not cold, just clear. I don't know, he admitted. I think I lost something I didn't understand until it was gone. Elena looked at him, really looked at him, the man she once planned a future with. He looked older now, not just in his face, but in his eyes. They carried weight, regret, maybe even shame. Ryan, she said, we were young. You made a choice. So did I. We both lived with it. He looked like he wanted to say more, but the words stuck. I never wanted to hurt you, he said quietly. But you did, Elena replied. And you didn't stop. Silence settled between them. Then she added, but I'm not standing here tonight as the woman you left. I'm not broken. I'm not angry. I'm just free. Julian appeared a moment later. He didn't interrupt. He just stood beside Elena, slipping his hand into hers. Ryan looked at him, then back at her. I'm happy for you, he said, though his voice cracked slightly. Elena nodded once. Good night, Ryan. She turned and walked away, her hand in Julian's, her back straight, her heart finally light. Ryan watched them go. Back inside, Mia saw everything from the window. She didn't say a word as he returned, but the silence between them said more than anything ever could. The stars were brighter now. Elena and Julian stepped outside the hall, hand in hand, the night air cool on their skin. Laughter still floated from inside, mixed with soft music, but Elena no longer felt part of it. She didn't need to. She had found what she came for. Not revenge. Not attention. Just peace. She turned her head slightly, looking up at Julian. He was quiet, watching her with those steady eyes that never asked for more than she was ready to give. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I think I am. They walked slowly toward the parking lot. Elena's heels clicked lightly on the pavement, the only sound between them for a while. She didn't rush. She let the quiet fill her. She thought about the girl she had been, standing alone on the porch all those years ago, listening to Ryan say the words that broke her heart. She thought about Mia's fake smile and the silence that followed her out of that town. But tonight, she was no longer that girl. She was stronger, wiser, whole. When they reached the car, Julian opened the door for her, then walked around to the driver's side. As he started the engine, Elena glanced back one last time at the hall. Through the window, she saw Ryan sitting at a table, his face in his hands. Mia stood across from him, arms crossed, lips moving fast. Her face was hard, angry. She looked tired. Their fairy tale was cracking. And Elena didn't feel sad. She didn't feel happy either. She felt free. As the car pulled out onto the road, the town faded behind them. Julian reached over and took her hand again. You were amazing tonight, he said. She smiled. I didn't do anything. You showed them the woman they never deserved. Elena turned to look out the window, the trees passing like shadows. I used to think I had to go through life quietly, she said. Always careful. Always small. I didn't want to upset anyone. Julian was silent, letting her speak. But I'm not that woman anymore. I don't need to be small to be safe. Julian smiled. You were never small, Elena. You were just waiting for the right moment to rise. She looked at him, eyes soft. You helped me find that moment. He brought her hand to his lips. And I'll never stop. They drove in silence for a few minutes, the highway stretching ahead, lit by the warm glow of streetlights. Then Julian asked, Do you want to stop somewhere? Late night coffee? Or just head home? Elena leaned back in her seat, the night quiet around her, her soul finally still.
Home, she said.
Let's go home. 1 year later, a photo appeared in a magazine. It showed Elena standing at the opening of her new bookstore, larger, brighter, filled with children's corners and quiet reading rooms. She held a ribbon in one hand and Julian's hand in the other. The headline read, The Quiet Queen of Words, How Elena Blake Found Strength After Silence. Ryan saw the picture in a coffee shop. He was alone. He stared at the photo for a long time, then turned the page. Mia didn't speak much to him anymore. They still lived under the same roof, but it felt more like two strangers passing in silence. Regret is a quiet thing. It doesn't shout. It whispers over and over again. But Elena never heard it anymore. She had walked away, not to escape her past, but to step fully into her future. And this time, no one could take it from her. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You can also comment whatever you feel about the story under the comment section. Thanks for watching.